Now, going on to the culture part of the podcast, you have Oppenheimer critiqued for feminist, or by feminists for reasons. Now, the movie actually made $80 million during its opening weekend, so not as great as some had kind of hoped. I say that because the production cost is estimated to be a little bit over $100 million. And from a technological perspective, I'm fascinated by it. I may actually see it, and I usually don't see movies, because he actually uses film, which is a dying industry in and of itself, as opposed to, of course, we live in a digital age. And being an old soul who prefers analog technology and using things like stick shifts, manual transmissions, I secretly can appreciate him using film and practical effects. There's no CGI in the film, which in 2023 is unprecedented. CGI being the acronym for computer generated image, which if you ever go to a Marvel movie, you're basically watching a computer game because you see like one or two real people. And they put on a green suit usually, I believe, maybe one or two real suits, and the computers, I don't want to say magically, you have a whole team doing it, but they put the scenes and everything together with the explosions and everything like that. So Oppenheimer actually used all real effects and film, which is something you usually see from indie films. To have such a large film to it is phenomenally, I find that fascinating and really appreciate it. Now, Oppenheimer tells the story, if you haven't heard of him, of Robert Oppenheimer, who's the leader of the Manhattan Project, which is previously was the largest government project in history, was recently surpassed by the F-35 Lightning II by Lockheed Martin. That company headed that initiative where every defense contractor contributed in some way or another. But Manhattan Project was the largest at the time, and it came together to build the atomic bomb, which ended World War II. And you have many people critiquing the film because the female characters apparently were not portrayed well, and there weren't enough of them, which, if you want to read a history book, at the time, that was kind of the situation in that instance. You have other instances. World War II is kind of the tipping point. If you look at the workforce, that was really a big tipping point where women really exponentially increased their participation in the workforce, primarily because most of the GIs were overseas fighting and dying for our country. So you had that augmentation. So if you look at materials from the time, one of the best advertising that I saw, I was alive during World War II, although I'm an old soul, but the thing I really appreciated from some historical documents and advertising like that was Rosie the Riveter, where it was obviously her name was Rosie, and she was holding a riveting gun, and she was in front of, I believe, an aircraft carrier, a large construction of a large Navy vessel, and it was or maybe it's aerospace. I digress. It was a large military vehicle, and it was encouraging women to get in the workforce because there's that huge gap because many of the men were gone. So many people, I'm surprised more people don't contribute World War II to the increase in workplace placement, because after the war, that many of them stayed there too. So it was a big pivotal moment in our history, but there's also certain industries or certain areas, such as engineering, where there is more gaps in the talent pool. So that delta between men and women has shrinked exponentially since then. But in terms of the movie at the time, that would be accurate. But of course, many people don't want accurate. They just want to have everything be the same cookie cutter thing. And to even dare say that anything was different throughout history is sacrilege. You can't do that. Now, you have one moron, reviewers say that, quote, "The woman in Oppenheimer, boobs, babies, and a bit of booze. Bring in the washing, dear. They may as well have been blown up dolls," unquote. So I suppose that is a pejorative. They're trying to be pejorative. Ironically, they might just won over a couple of guys who want to watch the movie. But yeah, that was one reviewer. Another reviewer noted that many of the social media users in the Oppenheimer fail the Bechdel test, which no one really needs to know about the test, but I'll explain it anyway. Now, the Bechdel test is a phenomenon in which it's used to measure the representation of women in film and other fiction. To pass, it requires at least 2 women in the film series to talk to another about something other than a man. Often those women should also be named. So that's the Bechdel test. Another comment said there wasn't a female on script or on screen for probably the first 15 minutes or something, which certainly annoyed a lot of people because it's probably quiet. But some might say that. I would never suggest that. But it's fascinating to see so much criticism against this movie being historically accurate. And there's also some people critiquing there weren't more like kissing and there weren't a love story. That's fine. Not every cliche movie has to be the same copy paste as the last, where you have the guy and the girl getting together, they fall in love, they kiss. Sometimes a movie could just be about historical events such as this. You don't have to insert a BS love story. Like the movie Pearl Harbor was garbage, partially because they inserted these specific love stories that no one cared about. People want to watch, it was supposed to be a historical movie about the big event, and it focused on, I think I saw previews of it in maybe a couple minutes before I tuned out because it's so boring beyond all belief. But it focused on a very specific people falling in love. It ruined the movie for me. It's ridiculous. So it's interesting to see so much pushback against this film. However, the same people are not pushing back against Barbie, which shows men in the worst possible light as the most cliche, I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying douchebag. There's probably a nicer way. Let me know in the comments if there's a more sophisticated way of saying that. But it shows men as the most rudimentary, clumsy, bossy, ignorant, foolish. It shows men in the worst possible light in the Barbie film. I've yet to see a male feminist, what would that be, a men's rights guy? You don't see people protesting that film. You see a couple of conservative folks and a couple of people like myself critique it online, but you're not having dozens of articles written about it. Partially because it's a movie. But it'll be interesting to see, does this increase or decrease sales? I doubt it. Just because, again, the way the movie was, in terms of marketing, the way it was portrayed is pretty much what you're getting from most of the reviews of the film, as opposed to Barbie, where there's a big discrepancy between what you're advertising versus what you're getting. A topic in and of itself for another time. But I don't think it'll affect Oppenheimer's film sales too much. We'll see. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Also want to let everyone know we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of August, so I greatly appreciate you taking the time to click that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to take the time to comment and like. Those things really help out the videos get shared more and more. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.